We're going to get started. Elana Rugh, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Oh, I'm so excited to see you, Jenna.
You too. So Elana and I used to work together at the National MS Society a bunch of years ago at this point,
Many.
many
Yes.
years ago. But she was someone I always admired, even before I was in my president role, because of just how effortlessly and authentically she built culture within her team and her community. She was just like a cool lady. I just
Oh,
wanted to
thanks.
to be like her. And you've done so many really cool things in the nonprofit space, and I'm really excited to talk to you about your current role too. But I just would love to hear your thoughts on leadership because I know we have a lot of people listening who are currently leaders or are aspiring leaders, and I know that they could benefit from your beautiful wisdom.
Oh, that's great. Well, I am so excited to be here, and I have no right to be, but I'm so proud of you. We did this thing together, presidents together, and all of that, and then we went our own direction, and it has just been such a joy to see you spin off and follow your heart, this
Thank you.
way. And I know we're going to talk about being authentic here, and I think that you just are sharing such a great example of how to do that on your own terms, which I
Oh,
love.
well, thank you. And like I think it's something that we get to choose and we have to choose for
Right.
ourselves. No one's going to come
Mhm.
along and give you permission for these things. And so I think it's really
Amen.
important to live in that way because then it gives other people permission when they see you live that way. They're like, "Oh, maybe I can do that too." So,
For sure. Yeah.
yeah. But before we get started, I would love to hear from you, Ilana. What is a trait or a quality of yours that you love and how does it influence the way that you lead or influence people in the world?
Um, well, I mean, to me, I think it's just being heart-centered, like people-centered. I love people. And my staff would roll their eyes if they're listening, but I always say people are the best and the hardest part about work and life in general, right? Like they bring us all of our joy. And for me, like, sometimes such frustration and disappointment and all of that. But it really I've built a career out of being a human-centered leader in person. I've learned from a lot of great leaders about, how I can bring my full self to work. I've also learned from a lot of leaders how I don't want to be, which is sometimes as important. Um, but I think, that's it for me is really being a builder of culture. And I have been able to experience great success in my career by just focusing on other people,
Right.
which is really, I think a joy and it works.
Mhm. Well, so would you say, because I think when we all hear human centered, we all have a different idea in our head
Uh-huh.
of what that means. But like on a daily basis, how do you put that into action? What does it look like for you to be a human centered leader on a daily basis?
Well, I do a lot of listening. So, I'm the CEO of the Detroit Historical Society now. I have about 80 people on my team, and it's such a cool, diverse group of people. I got older people and younger people, and they come from all backgrounds, and they kind of Detroit has this grit to it, and so I just spend as much time as possible talking with my people.
Mm,
So, I know that oftentimes when people make a transition to leadership, they struggle with not like doing the thing anymore, and they
yeah.
feel like they're not doing anything if all they're doing is sort of leading, talking to people.
Yes.
And I had to get over that a little bit. Like I'm not planning the events. I'm not out there first, and then the last person with the last, load of trash into the truck. And I know you know what I
Yes.
mean. Um, but that it's as important to just listen, and I think it goes beyond basic listening, but just active listening. And so
Mm,
I try to fill my days with conversations with
mm,
people. And you know, for any nonprofit leader, that's your team, but then it's also the community. It's our donors and our volunteers and my board members and all of that. So,
yes.
I mean, so that's really what it is about. I'm sort of on this constant listening tour, I feel like.
Hmm. And I like what you said too, because this is something I hear from, people who are either new in leadership roles or maybe they're in leadership roles and their team is operating really well, where they're just like,
Mhm.
I don't. I don't feel like I'm doing anything.
Right.
Like,
Like they're
especially,
working harder than me. Yeah.
yeah. Yes, and I think it's a hurdle to get over,
Mhm.
and it's just it's different kind of work. It's totally different kind of work 'cause when you're used to being an individual contributor and planning the events and doing the things and making all the calls, it can feel a little destabilizing when you're like, I don't think I'm doing anything, or maybe I'm doing my job wrong because I'm not doing what I used to be doing. And like how do you either coach or advise people on that, or how do you how have you gotten over this of feeling like you're not doing enough or you're not busy enough,
Right.
and like I'm knowing that you're doing the right work.
Mhm. Well, I think it's just a different burden, and I went through years of imposter syndrome, which, we could have a whole different conversation
Oh
about that,
yeah.
right? Like, who the
Yeah.
hell do I think I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm still this, like, little girl with the journalism degree, like,
Yes.
leading, one of the most important museums in the country, and, like, I don't have any business doing this, so I think there's a transition, that I had to go through, and, um I had a colleague of mine, pointed out to me, just when we were having a kind of a vulnerable moment, woman to woman about like, oh my gosh, like this is so stressful, or, just sharing feelings about it. And she said, but you're always there, you're always thinking about it. And so I think it's, the shift in the burden is it's not like doing the things on the timeline with your hands and, all of that. It is being available and constantly caring,
Yes.
for sort of that invisible burden that we women have in lots of ways. But that is a constant thing. I'm never not thinking about my people. And so, and I'm the go-to person when there are problems. And so that I think there's, part of that is that's a necessary shift. But it takes time and I think maturity
Hmm.
and then having the right team in place, of people who respect, sort of your position and what you're bringing to the table.
Hmm.
I have a
That's
great
so
team.
interesting. No, I like the way you frame that around the burden, and that's so invisible. It's not like a thing you can cross off a to-do list or
Mhm.
show KPIs around how often you're
Right.
thinking about people at 8 p.m., but it's just constantly there. And it is a burden that is we love to have because it is the
Mhm.
best job leadership, but it's also the worst job at the same time in a lot of
Yep.
ways because of
Yeah.
that burden and the level of care. And you bring a level of care that is probably heightened in terms of
Mhm.
just how you show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I do want to talk about your job though, because it sounds super cool. And so you say
Yeah.
that you are a self-proclaimed history geek. Have
Yes.
you always been that?
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, I loved history classes, and, I grew up going to museums. My family, fortunately really appreciated culture, and so, we'd go to plays and the symphony and things like that. I mean, not like we were, like, highbrow or anything like that, but,
Hmm.
we happened to live in a location like you are too, right? Like, when there was a big city nearby, you can take advantage of these things. And so, I went as a kid to the museums that I run now. And I would have never thought that I was fit, as a candidate for a job like this. And I'm just feel really grateful that the board decided to give me a chance. Never run public spaces before, never worked in the cultural sector. All my career had been in the kind of health related nonprofit space. And but transferable skills, thank
Oh yeah.
goodness for that, right? And I think my passion came through. So it's just a dream. I tell people all the time. I think I have the best job in Detroit, and for a lot of reasons, I think that's true.
Yeah. So what is something that you because have you been a lifelong Detroiter? Is that
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
okay.
I live in the suburbs. I'm about 20
Hmm.
minutes north of the city. As people know across the country, Detroit has been through a lot, and it's
Hmm.
really, there's a resurgence of a lot of energy around it. We have the best riverfront in the country, and people that just it wasn't like that when I was growing up, and people don't always think about it that way. They have one thing in their heads.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's there's always something to do here, and I just feel, really lucky that I get
Yeah.
to do this work.
So what is maybe was there something that you learned since working at the museum about
Mhm.
Detroit that you didn't know before, even though you were a lifelong resident of
My gosh,
Detroit?
like
Is
a
there
gazillion things. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm not a historian, so this,
right.
it's an interesting thing. So, and I think this is sort of a relevant point too for people. We find ourselves in positions where, frankly, we maybe have no business, doing this. And I do a lot of media interviews, and people assume that I'm a historian, and I'm just not. And I'm actually not great at remembering dates and things like that. But I remember the stories, and I
Mm,
I, have a journalism background. I'm a storyteller, and I think that's the connection there.
yeah.
But there are so many things that I learned about Detroit that that we could talk for hours about it. I mean, Detroit was the beginning of, a lot of different things. A lot of things were invented here. It's not just about Motown music and automotive,
Mhm.
but there is, a lot of strong women came from Detroit, and, there's so many great stories. So I
Yeah.
I can't pick one. There's just too
Oh,
many
sure.
because I every day I learn something new. It's pretty magical working our offices are actually in the museum,
Oh,
and
fun.
so pretty cool to be able to just go downstairs and walk through, and always learning, so
Right. Is there one thing I know you said you don't have just one thing, but is there one thing that came from Detroit that we maybe use every day and we don't even realize it?
traffic lights were invented in Detroit. So, which kinda makes sense. I
Makes
mean, the
sense,
first,
yeah.
like, paved highway ever was in Detroit. So, yeah, lots of things.
I also love history, though I'm not, I feel like I didn't have a good history background or education.
Mm,
But whenever people tell me stories, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. So I love going to museums for that reason.
yeah.
I am not always patient enough to read everything on the placards next to
Mhm.
anything, but I
No,
like being
frankly, me either.
immersed.
No,
Yes.
my husband's one of those read every word kind of people, and
Uh,
so we always, like, splinter off. So I'm
yes.
looking for the big things, but I think that's sort of our personality in general, right? Like, I
Uh,
am a big picture person, and I'm looking for the story, and I don't
mm.
necessarily need to read every panel to get the story that I want. Oh, there's a story over there I wanna go see,
Right.
so I'm all over the place.
Yeah, a now very dear friend of mine, but he and I were, dated for like 5 years. We joke now that the reason that our relationship ended because it was because we were museum incompatible.
Well, that's probably a real thing. That's
Because
funny. You're like,
I
"Hurry the hell up." Right?
I specifically remember just like going and sitting in the like bathroom vestibule on a bench and just relaxing because I'm
Like,
and we were
looking at your watch.
well, here's the thing, we were at the Holocaust Museum, and also it's just overwhelming,
Oh my
and so I'm
goodness.
like, "I'm just gonna
Yeah.
go hide in the bathroom. You
Mhm.
keep reading about the Holocaust because I
Yeah.
can't do
No,
this anymore."
that is, something, right? Yeah, I mean, and this is, I mean, not to birdwalk too much, but this is a crazy time for museum
Mhm.
professionals and people who love truth and history. We will get political here, but, my team is have a lot of young historians and people who are really educated about the past and
Mhm.
um the things that are happening at the Smithsonian and at the national parks with history being stripped out of locations. I have faith that it'll be put back.
Mhm.
um but that's something that we're dealing with, that sort of like what if situation, which
Right,
has
right.
really been an opportunity for some incredibly vulnerable conversation, and when people talk about sort of their fears about what's happening.
Is
Yeah.
the museum receiving any actual pressure right now to change any of the, materials or exhibits?
No, no, we're not, but the funding model has changed.
Right.
So now you can't use the same words that you used to. And so there are a lot of conversations happening in the museum space about, like, are you selling your soul to, if you even just change the language in a grant proposal, let's say,
Right.
should we just not apply because it's just not right? And
Hmm.
so we're kind of still at a crossroads with all of that,
Right.
I think, and hoping that it just passes. But we lost about $350,000 worth of funding that was, typically devoted to us telling more diverse stories of the community around us. So that's been kind of a hot button for sure.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and like your point, the conversations that you, I guess, quote, get to have with
Yeah,
your
yeah.
board are really open and vulnerable. And I do think in times like this, it forces us to be really innovative and creative. What's the saying, that kites rise highest against the wind,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
no, that's true. It's
Yeah.
true. I mean, and it really is as divisive as it can be, it's also brought people together, for really
Mm-hmm.
important conversations. So there's good
Yeah.
in all of it, despite
Yeah.
how
What's an
horrible.
exhibit that you're most excited that's going to happen at the museums?
Oh, well, a couple years ago, we launched a program called The Hustle, which was a feature on people who are making history today. So when folks
Mm.
think about museums, you kind of think about the dusty history, like 50 years plus. And um, but we are the only organization that is collecting today's history so that 100 years from now, people will know what was happening in Detroit. And all museums do that. It's just one of those things that people don't really ponder
Mm.
very
Mm-hmm.
often. So contemporary collecting is kind of how we phrase that. But we did an exhibit. This exhibit called The Hustle that focused on Black Detroit entrepreneurs and these weren't like people who had raised, they weren't millionaires or anything, but it was like your local grocer or hairdresser or, a mechanic or something like that. But the people who kept the neighborhoods around us working. And this idea came out of a conversation which I had with one of our trustees within my first month on the job, and just said, I hear from people that folks who live right around the Detroit Historical Museum aren't visiting. And Detroit is a city that's now 80% people of color. And when the museum was built in 1951, that wasn't the case. And so, clearly museums around the world struggle with this. It's like people don't think we're telling your story, so they just don't come, right?
Mm.
So this was a question that I put out to this African American board member saying, like, do you have any ideas of how we could bring more people into the community? And he said, what if, you did this? And so we decided to source nominations of like who's keeping your neighborhood going, and the only requirements was that it was a business that was just in Detroit within the city limits. We thought we'd get 100 nominations and then tell some of the stories, but we got over 800 nominations. We were able to tell the stories of 34 different Detroit companies. And now those people's stories are part of the collection and the archive for all time. And seeing these folks come into the museum, and they'd bring their family members, their grandma, their distant
Yeah.
cousin stuff, people standing there looking at their exhibits and literally crying. Like, I never thought we would see our
Wow.
family, represented in a museum. And so now we're their home too. And so we're just getting ready to launch the Hustle too. So I'm super
Cool.
excited about that. We're expanding it. It's not just Black Detroit entrepreneurs. It is, any person of color. And so we'll be able to pull other communities in. And so I'm pretty fired up about that.
Wow. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
great idea. I love this idea of contemporary collecting. Is that what it's
Mhm.
called?
Yep. It
Right.
is. Yeah, all the
Yeah.
things like during COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, and
Mm-hmm.
we made our team out there, collecting masks. Remember all the personalized masks
Mm-hmm.
and stuff,
Yeah.
and the handouts, like flyers from some of the marches and all of
Mm-hmm.
that, and really just photographs, getting the kind of the digital record of this crazy time and all
Right.
that
Oh my
stuff that
gosh.
happened.
I mean, I think about that a lot. My sister was just sharing with me yesterday because she lives in Minneapolis, and
Oh, oh
she
gosh.
she stopped and took a picture that was on a lamp post of instructions for how to use your whistle, because everyone carries
Yes.
whistles now, and it's
Wow.
instructions for like what are the, it's like a just a strong like blow of the whistle or like a tweet tweet tweet, and
Mhm.
those things mean different things like when you hear
Oh
them.
my gosh.
and
Well.
and it's like it's crazy that
Mhm.
this is just normal, that one, we're carrying whistles, and two, we have to be instructed on how to use them. But
Right.
also I was thinking, like, this is going to be in a museum one day,
It is,
just
right, yeah,
having
people are
that
gonna say, yeah,
perspective.
"What happened in 2025, 2026 during this time frame?" Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Interesting stuff that you get to do in this
Yeah,
city that
it
you're
is. It's
in.
not all heavy, you know? I
No,
mean, there's a lot
no.
that's nostalgia that people just love, but, yeah, it's
Right.
cool work.
What do you do when you're not working? Like what do you make time for no matter what?
Well, I've been a lot better making time for me. How about that?
How about that?
So, my husband Chris and I have 6 kids between us, so we're like the
Okay.
Brady Bunch,
Uh-huh.
blended family. We still have my 2 youngest sons at home. Sean and Jack are 15 and 17, and so we're doing the whole high school thing. You gotta be
Mhm.
a mom, but they're very involved in what I do at the museum, which is super cool. So they feel like it's their museum too. They've grown up there. But, just in the last couple of years, I finally kind of hit a limit on the doing everything for everybody kind of thing
Mm.
and started to try to I think give myself some space to I mean, I feel emotional saying it because we feel guilty, right? But just doing things for myself. So I'm back to reading a ton and you know, being out in nature and those sorts of things. So that's become my non-negotiable
Yeah.
is, that whole um, put on your own mask first.
Yes, and
So
I hear and thank you for sharing that because I hear this from a lot of people, especially women,
Mhm.
who just feel like I know I should be doing more things for
Right.
myself, but I'm busy taking care of other people. I've got these kids, I've got this job, I've got these responsibilities, and I'm always curious because it sounds like you said I realized I needed to make a change, and then I made the change. What was that little bridge? What was the reckoning or the decision that finally got you to say, nope, I'm
Boy.
prioritizing me now.
Wow. You know what it well, I'm gonna call out another podcaster, but I feel like it was the whole Mel Robbins let them thing.
Mhm.
Like being a doer and having been I mean, I've been a CEO of, for a long time now of
Yeah,
different
yeah.
places and I know the stuff that needs to happen and all the things, right? Like it's all here. And I had a moment when I first really let that sink in, listened to her podcast, bought the book, read it. And, I know some people are kind of like, oh, that's, not all that. But it really resonated with me
Mm.
in the amount of so this started with the amount of control that I was asserting, even just with my kids and what they're doing and with my husband and what he's doing, and, even with my staff that I think I've built a life out of, taking things personally for better or worse, and realizing finally, in my mid-50s that, um I should really just worry more about how I'm reacting to things, and so I think
Yeah.
really that's if forced to, like, pick a moment, I would say, like, that was probably the thing that sent me around the corner to saying, like, "Okay, I'm gonna pause a little bit here and just think about what can I do in this situation?" And
Right.
but that was helpful, and so that allowed me so I'm spending less time controlling everybody else's life so I can spend more time on myself, I guess,
No, that's thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that because I think it's not popular to say that like, "Oh, no one wants to call themselves a control freak, nor
Right.
do they I'm not
There's some
calling you that, by the
positive
way.
way of framing that, but we don't have to find it today.
No, but like I think more of us than not want to feel some amount of control over all
Mhm.
the things
Yeah,
because when you especially when you're a high performing person and you're a leader, you're like, I
you're used
can
to it.
I can make
Mhm.
everything work.
Mhm.
It's my job. It's what I'm good at. And you don't have to be good at controlling everybody's
Uh-huh.
situations, nor can you. And so I just appreciate you saying that because I think there's more people than not that are feeling like they want to have control over everything and know that they can't. And to say, you know what? All right, I'm going to just release my little grip here. I'm going to focus
Mhm.
on what I can control, which is me, and see what happens. And so I guess as you've let go and let them
Mhm.
and release some control, what are you realizing?
I think I'm just calmer. I feel more peace in my life, and that's probably because I'm doing the things. I'm going to Pilates and I'm reading and I'm,
Yeah.
like kind of connecting with the world a little bit more deliberately. Then I feel like I really got on a track, especially when I took this job, so it was 7 years ago, and I like, whenever you take on something new, you know what a big mountain that is to climb and learning all the things, and so I
Mm,
was just so, um, devoted to that, and if I wasn't being mom or wife, it was work. It's what I was thinking about all the time, and then, like, honestly, feeling guilty if I wasn't doing one of those wife, mom, boss things, like, to just sit there and just be. So that's what I found, that it's, like, giving yourself permission and cutting yourself the slack to just say, like, "You know what? If it's a Saturday and I have some glorious time to myself. Like, it's literally okay if I just don't do anything, but you feel
yes.
like you have to give yourself
Yes.
permission, and,
Yeah.
that's silly. So I guess I'm over it, right? That's like postmenopausal me of, like, just done with, like, all of that.
We do not care club. Yeah,
No,
just
my
yep.
god, you have to get her on. She's like, "Isn't that awesome?" It's so true.
Yeah, you just and it is. It's guilt like what you said about guilt is real because I do feel
Mhm.
like even I on Saturday, I got up and I went to yoga and I went for the walk and I got my laundry in and I'm like, well, okay, I've got all these things to do. And then I just lied down on my bed for a second just to check
Yeah.
something quick on my phone, which turned into 3 hours of me
Mhm.
lying
Right?
on my bed. And I kept saying, Jenna, you got to get up. You got to be productive. And I'm like, but,
Why?
but why?
Right.
And so sometimes we have to ask ourselves, but why? And just release that guilt, release the expectation, because I do, we're obviously very hard on ourselves, so
Yes.
it's okay.
Too hard on ourselves. Well, we
Yeah.
can be each other's accountability buddy,
Let's
so
do that. What's a book that you've read recently that you liked?
Um, gosh, that's a great question. I'll pick one work-wise, and,
Hmm.
you may have read it before too, but I just reread it, and it's The Speed of Trust.
Yeah, yeah.
So, S.R. Covey, Stephen S.R. Covey,
Hmm.
really very impactful. I have some, things at work that I'm working on. Trust is always a factor there, and, it had been a while since I had visited that book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's working
Hmm.
anywhere. I mean, and it's good for life too, but, that's really, been resonating with me again.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's or on my shelf here. I haven't read
Mhm,
it in a while. So good. So good. So, Ilana, I do want to talk about so one of the like recently, probably about a month
mhm,
ago or so, you had posted something on LinkedIn that I
mhm,
was so excited to read. You posted, I don't know if it was like a post or an article, but
mhm,
you shared your story of being adopted and what it
mhm.
means to be an adoptee. And so I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about that and
Yeah.
what made you want to share that story recently.
Yeah, well, I, had been thinking about it for a long time. So I wrote this, really, to commemorate my birthday. So I turned 57 this year, which is just sort of a random number, but for some reason I just been thinking a lot about it, and realizing that every year on my birthday I get very melancholy, and
Mm,
sort of what's the reason behind that. I had, a former therapist, go therapy, who had, helped me work through, lots of things, but, I just felt like it would be cathartic to write about this experience and why I feel sad on my birthday, and that led me down this unexpected path to the kind of the outcome being how that's affected me as a leader. And, so the feedback has been wonderful. I mean, the basic story in a nutshell, I was adopted as an infant, during these secret times, in the 60s, where birth mothers in a lot of states were promised, forever anonymity. And when I was, 18, I was able to get some non-identifying information, and then in the last few years, just through DNA testing, 23andMe, Ancestry, and stuff, I
hmm.
was able to identify, who my birth family is, and, learned a lot of things. And I invite people to look me up and read the article. It's on my LinkedIn and
Yeah, we'll
and
make
my
sure to
Facebook
post it.
page. Yeah. And lots of folks that I had no idea their lives were touched by adoption. Either they were adoptees or they had given kids up for adoption, have come out of the woodwork. So there's a, real cohort of people who want to talk about this, I found. I really crux of it is that, we we go through things as individuals which inform the way that we lead. And that it's really, in its very basic sense, this idea of everybody's going through something and you have no idea. And people had no idea that I carried this like sadness. But it's really made me, I think, throughout my life and my career, be very in tune and aware that everybody's going through something. So, it's really simple that way, but ultimately I feel like that has made me a better, much more compassionate leader, a better listener, um, to understand from the human element, we're not machines, we're all a product of like everybody goes through something. That's just my thing that I went through, right? So whether you're a product of divorce or you had illness in your family or whatever. Like everybody's got something. It's like, what's your flavor, right? So this
Mhm.
just happened to be mine,
Yeah.
but I think it really has changed me um as a person. And some hard things came out of it, but it was very cathartic. So I'm glad
Good.
I did it, and it's
Yeah.
been cool. I mean, I found out there were 4 or 5 people who work for me who are adopted, and we would never talk about that. It's not something you bring up.
Yeah.
But now there's this little kind of sisterhood of like, "Hey, and how did you feel about that?" And so it's been good.
Well, I'm so glad you posted it because and we were talking earlier about just
Mhm.
the importance of vulnerability
Yeah.
and just what happens when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, how that
Right.
influences and impacts the people around us. If people are listening right now who are maybe on the fence about being vulnerable as a
Mhm.
leader, because I know it's not comfortable, right? It's not easy if you don't have a lot of practice around it. And I guess what advice would you give leaders or even newer leaders who hear over and over about how important vulnerability is, but are
Uh-huh.
on the fence about how to do it? Like what can you tell them?
Right. Well, I think hands down it's the most important leadership trait that there is. I mean, I'm not a CEO because I'm the smartest person in the room. And I, I feel that by sharing our true selves and being open to other people, it is just such a great base for trust being built. So I'm thinking back to one of the first times that I actually had to be super vulnerable, or ended up, maybe I was trying hard not to be, was when we were at the MS Society and I had to lay off almost half my staff and had to have these meetings with people. It was brutal, like one after another in this one day. And it was 2008. Like, remember all that, like the
Mhm.
horrible downturn and,
Mhm.
the US as a whole. And just this heartbreaking. I love these people. And I remember sitting in front of the remaining staff, like who didn't have any idea what happened, like calling them all together into the conference room and sitting there and having to tell them, what happened. And I remember I carefully scripted, myself out. And I had a partner from the home office at the MS Society who sat with me, who was there to help make the decisions and everything. And that person was encouraging me to just, like, be strong and you just have to say it like this is just how it is. And I ended up crying, and I it was important to me to speak the names of the people who weren't going to be working with us anymore. Like I
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
choked up about it now. Fortunately, we're all still friends. It was a lot of years ago. But in that moment, I think that the people on my team saw that I was human too, and that this wasn't some like machine making these decisions, and that it mattered and that it was hard. And I always believe that the more we know about each other personally,
Mhm.
the more slack we cut each other. I mean, you
Mhm.
people are going to disappoint you at work all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just that's just human nature, and best intentions, things don't always go well. But if I know like what's in Jenna's heart, then I'm gonna, always give the benefit of the doubt. And so I think
Mhm.
that's what it brings to you as a leader is people will, your trust is elevated. Now it can go the opposite direction. Like you can't feign the tears. Like I think we've seen that too in different
Yeah.
places where you have a leader who's been told like, oh, you should be more vulnerable. And then it seems like it's fake. So I don't know what the secret sauce is there. But, I remember early on in my career, I was in one of my first leadership positions, and I had my supervisor literally in writing in a review say, "You have to be more of a bitch." It was a
Yeah.
man, and, I was like, "Wow, I'm not gonna do that."
Mhm.
And, I got advice of, like, "Don't let the people who work for you really know you because they'll kinda, then they'll understand more of, like, how they can get to you." And I just don't believe people are like that. Like, I just am optimistic about human nature and people in general. I lead with trust, and I know not everybody's like that, so I think it's
Mhm.
harder. Like, if you're a new leader or a seasoned leader and your default setting is to be skeptical, I think it's harder to put yourself out on that limb. But,
Yes.
in the case, especially when bad news is to be delivered, I
Mhm.
think that, showing vulnerability and just who you are and how it affects you also, it just makes all the difference.
I agree. Those are excellent stories, and one of the things I'm thinking about is people like when we're leaders, our people are always watching us and
Uh-huh.
listening to us and just their eyes and ears are on us more than we even realize. And
Yeah,
so
so true.
when we are showing up with just like our guard is down and we're vulnerable and like it gives them this permission to like kind of exhale and be themselves too. We're modeling just the tone, the vibe, the everything. And so just the more that you can be yourself and be unafraid to be yourself. And there's certain situations where we have to like maybe turn the dial like up or down on how much of ourselves we
Mhm.
are.
Right.
So that's just some self-awareness stuff, but just erring on the side of choosing your whole self and
Mhm.
being yourself, even if it's fumbly or messy, I think people respond to that and appreciate that. And I know the times in my leadership when I had to share difficult news and it was maybe like a little bit fumbly around it, people reach out and they appreciate it. Say thank you so much for what you shared and how you shared it,
Right.
and that feels good because
Mhm.
we don't have to be perfect. But we do have to be real.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
So, Alana, I could talk to you all day, but so
So fun. I
I
know, me
know, I
too.
know. But as we wrap up here, I guess what final words of wisdom or advice do you have for people? It doesn't have to be about work. It could be really about anything.
Boy, there's so many things.
I know. It's a hard
Um
question.
It is, it is. Well, I'm just gonna circle back on the human element of things. I think that, we all have to make difficult decisions when you're a leader, and that sometimes you're the only one that can make the tough decision. But even when you have to make a tough decision and you have to be firm about something, you can still be kind. And I have never understood when people are sort of angry and mean, and we've all worked for people like that and seen that play out, and I've just felt that there's just no place for that. That when we're at work, we spend more time with those people than we do oftentimes with our families, and that, trust is bred when you are just kind, when you're delivering bad news, when you're having a
Hmm.
disagreement with somebody. And I'm not saying I'm perfect with that. I mean, obviously I, get irritated, but staying true to yourself and just focusing on the human and what they might be going through, just, that has been something that I feel has, really been sort of the North Star for me, is just kind of like just be nice.
Be nice.
Just
Yeah.
be nice. Like, there's a book in there somewhere. Someone's probably written it, but it's true.
It is. And I think there are a lot of places where that is just not being followed right now, and people forget just the basic decency and kindness, and it really goes a long way. So
Yeah. No,
great
it's true.
advice. Well, Alana, I'm going to make sure to link to your story that you talked about that was
Cool.
on
Yeah, I
LinkedIn. But
welcome connections from, and hey, anybody
yeah.
who's a friend of Jenna is a friend of mine. I don't know how long we've known each other, but I would this has just been such a joy to, see you, and you're just like I remembered.
Oh,
It's
same.
it's great. I am excited to connect with your listeners and
Mhm.
followers, invite people to come to Detroit.
I know.
It's a
I
really cool vacation spot. Maybe not right now, it's, like,
not
6
maybe not
out or
now.
something, but
But I think I am going to come to Detroit because one of my bands that I like
Mhm.
to follow where they
Yeah.
are on tour, and I have not been to Detroit yet, and it's on
Oh
my
my gosh.
list. So
How
I
fun.
think this spring I might make my way up to Detroit. So I'll let you know.
It's a great time to visit. That
Yeah,
would be wonderful. I would
yeah,
love that. So I
that
just
would be
I
fun.
can't wait to continue to watch you and see what you do next, and, just proud and happy to spend time with you.
Oh, you too, Alana. Thank you so much.